There is far too much political interference here. There's far too much decisions that are being made on a short-term basis, which are not in the interest of the public.
One of the things that allies all those things is that money should be independent and no single body in a society should have the power to create that money.
As I said from the beginning, the starting point at the pinnacle of the pyramid is meeting the needs of other people and the planet. And fundamentally, if that was the purpose to which money was used. So I completely agree, no centralised control.
What is money and how is it helping and indeed damaging our society, our health, our wealth and our happiness? Well, this is the Manna Journey with Phillip Ullmann, and we'll be putting the question of money to our guest today, the financial expert Dominic Frisby.
Hello.
The Manna Journey is the catalyst for change in our world. It's a consistent source of truth for the next generation and current leaders. Our mission is to change the world by reframing our current governance, by using ancient wisdom to solve modern problems, and by shaping innovative new businesses to have a culture of pursuit of purpose.
Now, can I ask you a silly question at this point? Given that assets are overvalued, particularly houses, why would we be concerned about asset prices falling?
The last time the housing market had a meaningful correction between 1989 and 1994, the Tories became unelectable for half a generation.
Okay.
No, every MP, half the MPs have got buy-to-lets. There's a lot of vested interest. The thought of people losing their homes and the electoral impact, I remember those days, people would put their keys, they couldn't pay their service, their mortgage, but put their keys through the door. Any government that has that now...
Well, let me ask you a question. Back in 2008, yeah? When let's say it happens again, let's assume my hypothesis is right. Just bear with me. There's huge amounts of debt and we get a systemic collapse. What happened in 2008, we both agree, is QE came in, but QE to the banks. So we didn't sort the problem out. We didn't put a cap on the amount of money, which is starting to go back to money being a store of value, which means it has to hold its value. As soon as you go into QE, it doesn't store its value. It effectively loses its purchasing price. So what happened in 2008, as we both agree, is that the Gordon Brown and went into a room with the bankers and they say, back us, failing to recognise they were the ones that actually caused the problem in the first place. And therefore, what happens now when...
I have saved the world.
What do you do?
Remember, he said that.
Is that what he said?
We not only saved the world, we saved the banks.
He actually, what is the alternative, Dominic? What could he have done rather than what he actually did? What alternative was there?
Well, the free market guys should have said he should have let the system collapse, and then you deal with all the consequences of that, and then something new quickly emerges that's better. But that politicians just won't allow that. There's just control freak mentality.
But it sounds like one of the things that you keep saying about the fact that there's the path of least resistance, the fact that politicians are unelectable. What I find extraordinary about this is it sounds like there is far too much political interference here. There's far too much decisions that are being made on a short-term basis, which are not in the interest of the public, not in the interest of the country, but are happening because there's a concern about the news headlines the next day in Westminster.
Money is a political tool.
Yes. I buy that.
And it shouldn't be. Money should be independent. And one of the things that, whether you're a gold bug or a Bitcoin bug or whatever, one of the things that allies all those things is that money should be independent and no single body in a society should have the power to create that money. Because when you have the power to create money at no cost to yourself, which is what the government has, it means that that body has disproportionate power within the society. And we wonder why the state is everywhere. It's because the government has this power.
Should I just build on that, Dominic? It's not just the government. The trouble with this propaganda is the free markets want us to think the problem's the government. Let them leave us alone. The problem is the commercial banks. It's not just the government, because the commercial banks create the vast majority of money, not the government. And to allow them, without any accountability, you understand banking, so do I. When a bank, why does 45% of the money go to real estate and go to commercial and residential real estate? Why do you think that's where banks lend their money rather than actually creating meaningful jobs? Why do you think that they lend for real estate?
Profit.
But why? But why real estate?
Because it's easy.
can I put an hypothesis forward? I think the reason is because we have a creditor-friendly legal regime, which means that the way the banks can operate is because if they got the security of property, what they can do, which is obscene, is they magic this money to existence. They then charge exorbitant rates of return, which are not achievable. The loan grows and grows. And then guess what? So they force, and by the way, they magic this money to existence. It's not something they've accrued, and they've just magicked it. And then they say, we'll charge you more and more, which means you owe us more and more. You're never going to be able to repay it. And then we'll take your house if you don't repay it, which is wonderful. So effectively, that's why they do it.
For sure, real estate lends itself to lending because you have the deeds of the house to use as collateral.
And you're taking away somebody's home, which, as you said from the beginning, means they can't build a family, they can't build a community because they haven't got a platform on which to build it. So the whole creditor-friendly nature of commercial banking leads to lending for financial assets, which and commercial and property assets, and we both agree that results in inflation, which means people haven't got the ability to buy homes, but more importantly, haven't got the ability to create families.
I wonder if at this moment, because we've talked about the fact that money's been debased, we've talked about the fact the housing market's in crisis, we've talked about the uncontrolled immigration it causes. I wonder, Dominic, if you could just help us by giving us some sense of how society and how community is being damaged by some of these banking practices.
Well, I'm not defending the banks, and you seem to think that the banks are the biggest villains in all of this, and I blame the system.
I'm not blaming them. Hold on. They're part of this, and I don't blame them. It's a problem that needs to be resolved. I'm not blaming them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not. But the systemic, the way the system is evolved means they have ridiculous functions, and they don't
quite have the same power and influence that they had in 2008 because their wings have been clipped by regulation.
No, I don't buy that. Seriously, don't buy that at all.
I would argue if you look at their share prices, that shows you that they're not the mites in the economy relative to what they were.
Again, we have to be careful with propaganda here. That people want you to feel that the problem is the state. Leave us alone. That's what they try and say to you. But when you recognise that organisations that are privately owned, that are running for the benefit of the shareholders, are literally creating money, which is indebting
There's nothing wrong with acting in the interests of your shareholders. That's what commercial operations are supposed to do.
Again, we have to disagree on that.
But hang on a second.
Why would you not act in the interests of your shareholders?
What about everyone else? What about people?
Well, they're not charities. They're commercial operations.
I'm not talking about charities. I'm talking about the bit that you said to me, which they have to be able to build a family. They have to be able to build a home. Why should I only think about...
I blame the system of money for that. And banks have had a big role to play in that, no doubt.
I'm not
their own answer a lot. But it's the system. It's not just commercial banks.
No, I'm not blaming anybody. It's not ad hominem attack. I'm saying the system which allows money to be created by the banks for whatever purpose they want without proper scrutiny, which leads to lending for inflationary purposes, which you said has happened in 2008, which is destroying people's lives. There's no question the last year and a half, the amount of suffering that is happening is obscene. And the banks are continuing. I don't blame them. The system needs to... So let me just ask you this. It's important. I asked you this question before. What alternative is there? And I think what you said, I would agree with you, is you've got to move away from these privately owned organizations that can do whatever they want purely for the interest of their own shareholders. We have to have, as I said from the beginning, the starting point at the pinnacle of the pyramid is meeting the needs of other people and the planet. And fundamentally, if that was the purpose to which money was used. So I completely agree, no centralized control. Woe be the time we get central bank digital currency, which is where the currency is created by the central bank, and they are totally in control. That I think we both agree would be complete nonsense, and that is fundamentally what Bank of International Settlements is actually talking about. That's a subject in its own right. But fundamentally, what I'm saying is we should distribute the responsibility to organisations which are local, which are actually using that money not to inflate property prices or financial assets or consumer prices, but to find meaningful jobs for people, enable them to have homes, to actually start to grow a family, to get married, etc. All of those things. And that's where what could have happened in 2008 didn't happen. That what needs to happen this time.
But do you see, before we finish up, do you see, Philip, a possibility where we could change this grossly irresponsible system and see real benefits to people on the streets?
Yes, but it goes back to what Dominic says. We've got to educate people. That's what this series hopefully will be about. We've got to debunk those ridiculous myths that don't tell the truth. It's about trust. Money's about trust, and we don't trust each other. And these myths are propaganda, and the powers that be don't want us to understand them, because if they did, the system would be changed by democracy.
Dominic, the final question to you: are you pessimistic or optimistic about the future?
I'm optimistic. I think we see the continued decline in the purchasing power of fiat money, and that is, as I say, inevitable. It's built into the system. But fortunately, we have new and better systems, and people are able to opt out. And there's an expression used amongst Bitcoiners: Bitcoin fixes this, and it does. It's a better system, it's a better medium, and it's a better store of value. And one day it will fulfill the function of unit of account.
And that's because it's hard to create, just in the way that gold is hard to create.
It has limited supply. And already we're seeing more and more people stopping using fiat money as a store of value. And they're using gold or S&P futures or Bitcoin or whatever. So the store of value function and of fiat money is already waning. And fiat money is a terrible unit of account because of the fact that its value changes and declines all the time. And so, but just gradually over time, you will see more people opt out. And I see a sort of bipolar future for the world. We have this incredible borderless medium that is the internet, but we don't have a money for the internet, because every time you send money across borders, you're hit with Forex charges and all the rest of it. And if you look at all the growth in the economy over the last 30 or 40 years, there's been some growth in the physical economy, 3, 4, 5% a year, but the big growth has all been in the digital economy. The growth of Apple, Facebook, Google, the internet, everything. And there's a reason for that, and that is scalability. Now, if you think, let's just say I invent the most brilliant mug that's ever been invented in mug history. I've still got to manufacture these mugs and distribute them around the world. So it's a logistical problem with all the customs and everything. But if I invent a brilliant app, I can upload it to the App Store, and that same one app can be downloaded 1 billion times. Google can make one little change to its algorithm, and that new change to its algorithm can be used by 7 billion people around the world. So there's just a speed that can happen in the digital economy that cannot happen in the physical economy. And that's why there's so much growth and excitement. But what the digital economy lacks, this borderless medium that is the internet, it needs a borderless system of money. And we now have it in Bitcoin and all the derivatives thereof. And I can now send a payment of 1/25th of 1p. So the tiniest micropayment to somebody in Timbuktu, in Kuala Lumpur, anywhere in the world, 1/25th of 1p. And the implications of being able to send amounts of money that small at no cost, for the potential for global growth and to spread wealth into areas of economy. And I think something like 3 billion people of the 8 billion people around the world are still unbanked. They can't get access to basic financial services, bank accounts and so on. But almost all of them now has a smartphone. And as soon as you have a smartphone, you have access to, you can start trading and receiving Bitcoin on your phone. You don't need traditional commercial banking. So it is an opportunity for growth and all sorts of, it's an entirely new system. And the new system has emerged through the voluntary participation of many. And some of the cleverest people on the planet we're talking about here. When you go to like a gold mining conference, the IQ level compared to the IQ level at a Bitcoin conference, it's just incomparable. They've all got foreheads like this. and it is such an opportunity for growth. And so you're going to see in the future, it's a bit like William Rees-Mogg once wrote a book called The Sovereign Individual in the late 90s. And he described two tiers of people, and there are going to be some people that are going to be trapped in their own country, within their own borders, and then there are going to be other people that operate in the digital economy and they just travel from place to place, what we today would call digital nomads. And digital nomads is the fastest growing workforce in the world. Mm-hmm. And these are going to be sovereign individuals that are not trapped in their physical economies with their declining fiat money and their burdensome tax systems and their inability to buy a house. They will just go where taxes are lowest and life is best. And I'm afraid the inevitable future of the world is this two-tiered world with these two individuals, those that are stateless and those that are state-bound.
I think the Bible, not me, says that we should be striving to create a world where people are blessed, which means that everybody is looked after, no poverty, family, community, people's needs are met, and the needs of the planet. It's talked about the dust and the earth we're not looking after either. So that's to me the bit of the pinnacle of the pyramid. The question then is, we both agree there's two different forms of money. There's effectively gold, real money, and there's credit. We both agreed that neither are actually working the way they should. We talked about Bitcoin. That's a subject in its own right, which I could talk to you about for a long time. But what I love to do is to start unpacking money itself, the gold. What is a potential solution to that money? Funny enough, you're not way out with Bitcoin, but I need to explain to you where my theory is. But there's money and credit. If we could explore those in stages and start to debunk these myths so people can come back and actually see, okay, let's start to really educate myself and start to understand how money should work.
Well, that makes it incredibly easy because this is the Manna Journey. It's a project that wants to bring about better governance, better economics and better wisdom. So plenty of videos online and indeed on our website. Thank you so much to Dominic Frisby and, as ever, the legendary Phillip Ullmann. Until next time, goodbye.